Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, let's just jump right in today with maybe the biggest theological puzzle there is.
Definitely one of the heavy hitters.
Yeah, if God is completely sovereign, in charge of everything, every single outcome, how can we human beings actually have free will? And maybe more importantly, how can we be held accountable?
Right. It feels like you can't have both. Like a zero-sum game. If God's in total control, then our efforts, our choices, they seem, well, almost pointless, don't they?
Exactly. But that's where our source material comes in. It's drawing from the Qur'an, and it offers a different way to look at it. Not static, not either.
Yeah, it suggests more of a dynamic relationship where God's sovereignty and our human ability to choose, our agency, they don't just clash, they actually interact.
And that's really our mission for this deep dive, to try and map out that interaction, understand the mechanism, how our choice kind of kicks off a divine process.
It starts with what we were given at creation, doesn't it? The sources really emphasize this.
What's the foundation there?
Well, we weren't just made for blind obedience. God gave us tools. 3 key ones. Reason, our ability to just see and understand the world.
Okay.
Then intellect, that's deeper, right? The capacity to reflect, connect ideas, understand consequences, and then the big one.
Free will.
Free will. The actual power to choose between paths. Good, evil, right, wrong.
Okay, let's try and unpack that then, because the paradox seems unavoidable when you look at God's attributes. He's called al-Hadi, the one who guides. That sounds great.
Very comforting, yes.
But he's also called al-Mudil, the one who leads astray. Now, if both guidance and going astray ultimately trace back to God's will, doesn't that just scream predestination? How is our choice meaningful then?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it forces us to be really careful with our definitions. We can't just think of al-Hadi and al-Mudil as God randomly assigning fates. If that were true,
Then free will is out the window.
completely irrelevant. So we need to dig into what hidaya and dalala actually mean, according to the sources.
Okay, help us with that. What's a precise definition of hidayah, of guidance here?
So hidaya is finding the straight path, the right way, the path God blesses. It's about clarity, purpose, fulfillment. Pretty straightforward, actually.
Okay.
But dalala, going astray, that's where the human element really comes into focus.
And it's not just like making an honest mistake,
Yeah.
slipping up.
The sources are clear. Dalala isn't simple error. It's about choosing to break God's laws.
Mhm.
It's holding on to false beliefs even when you see evidence against them. Or, and this is crucial,
Yes.
refusing to listen to the truth out of carelessness. Negligence. It's an active rejection, an intentional turning away.
Okay. So if God allows someone to be guided or to go astray, it's less like a lottery ticket he hands out
Right.
and more like a spiritual law, like cause and effect.
That's a much better way to frame it. It shifts everything.
Right.
Look, the outcome, whether you succeed in finding guidance or fail that enabling, requires God's will. Nothing happens outside his will. But the direction, the trajectory you're on,
Yeah.
that's set by your choices, your intentions. It becomes a natural consequence of what you choose to do, not some unfair fate decided beforehand.
Got it. Which brings us nicely to the individual's role, the effort involved. I like the analogy used in the material. Guidance is like a light switch.
Mm-hmm.
And you, the individual, you have to make the first move. You have to flip it.
Exactly. This is where the agency is firmly in human hands. Guidance is a gift, yes. But it's a gift you have to actively signal you want. You request it through effort.
And the sources even list specific actions, right?
Right.
Concrete things you can do.
They do. It's not passive. It requires conscious action. Things like actually going to a mosque or listening seriously to a sermon or reading the Qur'an and trying to understand it.
Physical effort. But there's mental effort, too.
It's absolutely crucial. Thinking seriously about what the scriptures mean, contemplating life, death, your own purpose, examining your intentions, that's key.
And community.
And community, yeah. Surrounding yourself with genuinely good religious people, being in an environment that pushes you towards clarity, not confusion.
So if you start doing these things, maybe small things at first, you make the effort, you flip that switch. God sees that sincerity.
He sees the effort as a request for guidance. And the promise is, he grants it. To start the process, he provides the light, the actual guidance.
Okay. But what about the flip side?
Well, if you choose to put your time, your energy, your resources into things that lead toward bad choices, towards distractions, towards heedlessness,
You're basically flipping the other switch.
you're signaling your desire for dalala, for going astray, and God allows the natural consequences of that choice to play out.
But wait a second. The sources also say God can intervene, right? He can still save someone even if they chose a bad path.
Yes, absolutely. His power and mercy are unlimited.
So doesn't that kind of make the light switch analogy a bit weak? If God can override it anytime, does my initial effort really matter in the end?
That's a fair point. It's a tension. But think of it this way. God's ability to intervene highlights his ultimate sovereignty, his boundless mercy. It's the exception that proves the rule, maybe. The primary mechanism, the general rule he established is you seek, he guides. You turn away, he allows you to turn away. His intervention doesn't cancel out the law of cause and effect he set up. Your initial effort, pressing that button, is still your fundamental responsibility.
Okay, that helps. The exception doesn't negate the rule. But to really get this difference between our effort and the actual success, we need that other analogy, the body analogy.
Yes, this one is very powerful because it relates to something so basic, eating.
Right. So what's my part in eating?
Your part is choosing the food,
Right.
maybe preparing it, putting it in your mouth, chewing, swallowing. That's your choice, your action, your effort.
Okay, that's what I do. But once I swallow,
It's completely out of your hands.
totally.
Yeah.
I have zero conscious control over digestion. I can't tell my stomach how much acid to produce or my intestines which nutrients to absorb. I can't regulate my body temperature to manage the energy release.
Exactly. Imagine trying to claim credit for all that incredibly complex biochemistry, saying, wow, look how well I digested that meal. I synthesized the proteins perfectly.
It would be absurd. You'd be taking credit for these intricate, unseen processes.
Processes established and run by God, that unseen, powerful hand, as the source puts it.
Okay, so let's apply that to faith. What's the spiritual equivalent of me choosing the food and putting it in my mouth? What's my part?
Your contribution is the sincere wish, the desire, the intention, the struggle, the effort you put in. For example, you genuinely want to pray with full concentration, with khushu. You make the physical effort stand up, go through the motions. You make the mental effort try to focus your mind. That part is yours.
That's my putting the food in the mouth.
Right.
And the spiritual equivalent of the perfect digestion, the part I can't do myself.
That's the divine gift, the actual realization of the goal, the feeling of connection in prayer, that sweetness of faith, the sudden joy you find in an act of worship, the deep longing for paradise, or maybe feeling truly content and peaceful with God's decree during a tough time. Those feelings, those states of the heart, only He can place them there. You provide the sincere desire and effort. He provides the spiritual fruition, the success.
This clear separation, human initiation, divine completion. This is why scholars have wrestled with this for centuries, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's a delicate balance. And it was summed up beautifully by the 14th century scholar, Saduddin Taftazani. He was brilliant at synthesizing these complex theological ideas.
What do you say?
He said, faith is a flame that God lights in a person's soul
Okay.
as a consequence of his or her use of free will.
Wow. As a consequence. So the free will part, the effort, has to come first. That's the spark.
It's the pressing of the button, the flipping of the switch. It initiates the process.
But that brings us right back to the final, really tough question. If the ultimate success, the flame being lit, is God's gift, how can we be justly blamed if we don't achieve it? How is accountability fair?
Right. The accountability piece hinges on God's perfect justice. And the source material confronts this directly. The principle is clear. You cannot blame God for bad things that happen to you, spiritually speaking.
Okay.
Good things are from God's bounty. But evil, meaning moral failure, spiritual darkness, the consequences of sin that comes from yourself, God doesn't wrong anyone. His justice is absolute.
So the failure, the spiritual downfall, it's self-inflicted somehow. But how does that square with the idea of God leading astray? That sounds active, like punishment from him.
We have to go back to that spiritual law of cause and effect. Think of it like spiritual atrophy, like a muscle you just refuse to use. God established the principle that if you consistently, deliberately choose wrong actions, if you ignore the truth when it's presented, if you break his laws knowingly, you gradually damage your own ability to even perceive the truth. You dull your spiritual senses. Your heart becomes hardened.
By your own actions.
By your own choices, exactly.
And this state, this self-inflicted spiritual blindness, that's what the Qur'an means by a seal set upon their hearts.
Precisely. When you read about a seal, it's easy to picture God arbitrarily stamping someone's heart, locking it shut.
Yeah, it sounds very final, very imposed.
But within this framework, it's understood differently. It means the person, through their own continuous rejection and choices, has essentially made themselves incapable of accepting guidance. They've closed the door from the inside.
So the act of sealing is attributed to God because he's the one who set up the whole system. He established the spiritual law that leads to this consequence.
Exactly. He established the law of cause and effect. The seal is the natural, predictable outcome based on the person's consistent free choices. It's not random. It's the end point of a path they chose.
Is that seal permanent then? Is it like game over?
Well, it's a very strong metaphor suggesting the heart has become inaccessible, unresponsive to truth. But we also know God's mercy is infinite. He can change any state he wills. The seal really represents the logical spiritual endpoint of persistent rejection. God is, in a sense, confirming the state the person has put themselves in through their own free will.
Okay, so when the sources say God causes someone to go astray or leads them astray, what it really means is he withdraws his specific blessings, his active support for guidance. He leaves that person to the consequences of their own choices because he knows, based on their pattern, they're determined to reject faith anyway.
That's the understanding presented here, yes. It's a withdrawal of grace, allowing the natural consequence of rejection to unfold. Happiness in the next life is seen as the result of your sustained effort towards good in this life. God only allows people to drift into dalala when he knows, through his perfect knowledge, that their own free choices are set against seeking faith.
So whether you ultimately receive God's favor or have it withdrawn, it all comes back to your free choice, the sincerity, the consistency of your effort.
That's the bottom line presented in these sources.
It completely reframes fate, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
not some pre-written movie script we're forced to act out. It's interactive. It's moment to moment, driven by the quality of our intention, our will.
Yeah, it's both empowering and humbling, I think.
How so?
Empowering because we have complete control over initiating the path, making that first effort, but humbling because we realize we have absolutely zero power to achieve the actual success, the spiritual connection, the real change of heart without God's help, his gift.
The human part is the sincere desire. The divine part is making that desire real.
Well put.
Which leaves us with a really interesting thought to chew on. Especially thinking about Taftazani's quote, the flame lit, after we use our free will, after we press that button. If that tiny internal, often secret effort, just the sincere wish for guidance, is truly all that God requires from us to set in motion this huge, miraculous process of divine guidance, well, what does that tell us about the incredible weight, the sheer significance of even the smallest, most hidden intention we hold in our hearts? And maybe, what does that reveal about what true sincerity really is?